Yo Joes, and welcome to another epic video of Stevie's Customs. In this video I will show you how I painted the crow.
These are all the supplies I used. Different kinds of paint, which I will name as I use them, and different kinds of brushes. From left to right, a generic brush which I picked up at my local hobby shop, Citadel brushes, a detail brush from Hawk Miniatures and a detail brush from Mini War Paint Tools. I primed the parts using Citadel Chaos Black spray can, and I mixed Revel Houtfarbe, which translates to skin color, and Vallejo Game Color Bone White. For the perfect consistency which just flows off the brush, I water it down until the paint has this milk-like consistency. To achieve perfect coverage, I apply multiple thin layers of paint. When painting the bullet holes, I don't have to be careful at all, because I will tidy it up later when I will paint the shirt black. Before I apply the second layer, I will let the first layer dry completely. I found the first mix a bit too pale, so I mixed in some Citadel Kislev Fresh to deepen the color, and added a second layer over the first one. And after 2 layers of skin tone, it looks like this. Next I'm using Revel Africa Brown to paint the robe around his belly. I don't have to be really careful with this step, because I will be covering all the mistakes I made when I will be painting the tape black. When I paint, I always paint the light colors first and then the darker colors over that, because the dark colors will be covering the light colors much easier than the other way around. Next I'll be painting his t-shirt, and I use Scale 75 Decay Black. It's a very rich and dark black tone. And yes, not all colors black are the same. This isn't the hardest step in a process, and the only thing I have to achieve is getting a smooth and even layer of paint. Cleaning up the bullet holes, however, is a bit trickier. I'm using multiple thin layers of paint and the very tip of my brush and the side of my brush to make sure I don't spill any black paint on the skin tone, which will be very hard to cover up afterwards.
There's something very satisfying about these images. I really like seeing those details being painted very clean, because a clean paint job really ups the quality of the entire custom, if you ask me.
The Scale 75 Inktense black ink that I use, instead of acrylic paints, has a really water-like consistency, which really makes it crawl between all the nooks and crannies that exist between the robe and the tape, without actually painting the robe. The natural shiny finish that ink has really turns the medical tape in some sort of miniature duct tape. To add some realism to the robe, I use a Citadel Anthrax Earth Shade to create shades between the robe fibers, which really gives it this natural robe-like look.
And there you have it. The torso is all finished and ready to dry. And then the pants. First I paint the rope around his right upper leg, and I use Revel Africa Brown for that again. I don't have to be too careful, because I will be fixing all the mistakes I make later when I'm painting the tape. The rest of his leather pants is pretty straightforward actually. I use Tar Black from Revel, and I just basically paint all the parts that aren't taped in this color. I find that using different shades of black really makes the entire piece, the entire custom actually, be much more interesting to look at, instead of everything just be the same color of black. Again, I am using multiple thin layers of paint to achieve an even coverage. Because I will be painting the boots in a darker shade of black, it doesn't really matter if I spill some of the tar black onto the boots. As with the tape on his belly, I use scale 75 Inktense black ink to paint the tape on his leg. And again I use Citadel Earthshade to shade the rope, to give it this more natural look. Now it's time to paint the boots, and I use scale 75 Decay Black. It's a very deep and dark tone of black, which really distinguishes the boots from the pants. I always paint the bottom of the boots as well. Just because no one will see it doesn't mean it shouldn't be painted, right? Now the painting is all done, I let it dry and wait before I can put on the clear coat to really seal the paint job. I use a Citadel Grey Cere spray can to prime the head, and I mixed Revel Houtfarbe and Vallejo Bone White to create the first layer of skin tone. Although the face is going to be white in the end, I choose to paint the skin tone as well, because I want the white of his face to look very makeup-like, like he applied it himself, and big chance that his skin tone will shine through it here and there. I added some Citadel Kislev flesh to really deepen the color some more, because the first mix, well, it was a bit too pale. In the end I used 3 thin layers of paint to complete the base coat. And now for the iconic crow makeup. I didn't use white but hellgrau, which translates to bright grey. Pure white would be too bright, too white, if you know what I mean. The light grey tunes the white a bit down without making it yellow. As his makeup dries, I start painting the hair. I don't use true black, but I use Revel Tar Black, which is a bit lighter. A bit light black. I don't use true black for the same reason I don't use true white, because the contrast will be too big and the true black will be too harsh. When painting the pieces of hair that are close to his face, I switch to my Hawk fine-tipped brush, because I really want to control where the paint is going. This video is just a summary of a much longer video I made, in which I show the entire painting process of the head. Just look at the notifications. Next, I apply the second layer of his makeup. I'm not covering the entire area that I painted before, because as I said, I want the skin tone to shine through here and there, so that it really looks like he painted his face himself. And now for the iconic black stripes. Well, black. Actually, I use grey paint for that. Contrast paint, which is very translucent. And I take my time for this. The key word is patience. By tracing the same line multiple times, I build up this very dark color, which actually looks like he took out an eye pencil and painted it himself. For the lips and his eyebrows, I again used tar black, and for his eyelashes and his pupils as well. By painting the eyes, the face really comes alive. I'm using the light grey to touch up some mistakes I made, and I trace the eyebrows once more. The finishing touch is some grey eyeshadow on his upper eyelids, and then I use some black ink to intensify the color of his hair. There you have it, all done. Hi Eric! You can find a much more elaborate video of how I painted the head right here. For painting the medical tape on the arms, I used Scale 75 Decay Black, which I watered down quite a bit actually. That way the tape really soaks up all the paint. I can't be too careful painting the tape, because I want the ridges and the rims to be black as well instead of white. Just leave out a tiny piece of white will really stick out like a sore thumb. So I have to spill some of the black paint on purpose, which won't be a big problem though, and I will show you why in a few seconds. To clean up the paint job, I will carefully scrape some of the paint that I spilled using my hobby knife. And for some bigger areas, like the thumb, I can use a Dremel. I finally have to paint some of the details, like his ring. And then I can call them done. Easy peasy. Combined to the torso, it really starts to look badass. To preserve the paint job, I put on a Revel Aquacolor clear coat on it. And the first coat that I do is a glossy finish. Gloss varnish tends to dry much harder than satin or a dull coat. So to protect my paint job, I put on a glossy clear coat on the entire custom first. This isn't rocket science, and no talent is needed for this step. Just slob it on there and drown the entire custom in a nice thin coat of clear varnish. Sometimes the varnish tends to pool in some of the ridges. Just remove the excess varnish using a clean brush. To prevent visible brush strokes in this layer, I also thin the varnish down until it has the before mentioned milk-like consistency. Gloss varnish also tends to intensify the color. Some people like this glossy finish on their customs. I'm not really one of them. I think it makes them look wet. And I don't want that. I want the more natural shine of the plastic. So I will be applying a more satin finish next. My secret recipe for the perfect satin finish is a mixture of gloss and dull coat in a ratio 1:3. So 1 part gloss mixed with 3 parts of dull coat. Be careful to remove the excess varnish here as well. Otherwise the dull coat will leave this light grey film, and since most of the custom is black, that would really show. So keep the layer as thin as possible. I really like this shot. This 3 minutes of me putting clear coat over all the parts. Just sit back and enjoy it. As a finishing touch, I paint only the taped parts with one last thin layer of gloss varnish. Not because that needs extra protection, but just to give it another texture, namely that of duct tape. Now the big moment of putting all the parts together. I really like this moment because it is the first time for me to see how the entire project really comes together. And there you have it, Eric Draven as the Crow. You've now seen 2 videos of how I build and paint the entire custom, but I've made even more videos of the separate steps that I took. Feel free to watch them. Thank you for watching. Until next time, stay safe. Bye bye Joes, bye bye.